Hello, welcome along. My name is Dan. It's a week where I have learned so many science secrets that I cannot wait to share with you. So let's get to it with a brand new Fun Kids Science Weekly. In this week's trip around the galaxy, I've got a huge announcement, seriously massive. If this is the best podcast in the universe, what I will tell you may shake the very fabric of the universe. I'm excited. It's on the way. Also, we're headed deep underground in the heart of a volcano to find out why they erupt.
And sometimes we see volcanic eruptions that involve explosions. They can be really dramatic. So there's booms associated with the explosion and an ash cloud, which then might rise many kilometers into the air.
And we're chatting to environmental heroes, tree sisters, who are on a mission to save our planet one tree at a time.
Anything fighting climate change is absolutely the coolest because you get to be a real-life superhero for the planet. You're not just sitting at a desk or going into an office. You're out planting trees, protecting animals, and making the earth healthier and safer for everybody who lives here.
So hop on, Explorer. Let's go on an adventure in a brand new Fun Kids Science Weekly. We'll start with your science in the news. Last week, the European Space Agency successfully launched a first-of-a-kind satellite which will weigh the world's trees. It took off from French Guiana in South America, will fly over rainforests, the Amazons nearby. It will use a special radar system to reveal what lies beneath the canopy at the very top of trees. Now, trees store billions of tons of carbon, and they do a lot of work keeping that to reduce the impact of climate change. The satellite is going to weigh the trees to see exactly how much carbon they're holding, to help us understand better how important rainforests are in helping the climate crisis, and how important the impacts are of deforestation, where we cut down trees and release all that carbon gas into the atmosphere, which does a lot to warm up our planet. It's a brilliant, ingenious idea. Just imagine you can weigh trees from space. Also, archaeologists have discovered ancient tools which they believe will show evidence of one of the earliest human populations in Scotland. The stone tool heads are believed to be from around 11,500 years ago. They date from a period known as the Late Upper Paleolithic. The discovery was made on the island of Skye. They're keeping the actual place top secret. Experts say it shows now that the West Coast represents a huge concentration of evidence for human populations over anywhere in Scotland. So maybe humans were at the Isle of Skye in Scotland first. Isn't it fascinating and mind-blowing that 11,000 years later, we are still discovering things that are answering questions about where us as humans came from, and we don't properly know the answers? We're always discovering something brand new. And our final story this week, it's a big one. It turns out goats are one of the smartest animals in the farmyard, brainier than sheep and alpacas. That's what new research by Megan Quail from Aberystwyth University has shown. Let's find out more with Megan. Thank you for being there, Megan. What made you do this research?
Well, I am a sheep farmer by trade, so I was always really interested in the way that sheep think and how smart they might be. But also, it's important that we know these things because it helps us to look after them better. So if we know how they learn and what they understand, then we can make sure that we're doing everything we can for them to make them comfortable.
So as a sheep farmer, were you under the impression that they were a very brainy animal in your experience of trying to keep and herd them?
I would say no. I think in my experience, they are very... They're clever in their own way. They understand what they need to do and they do it well. So they stay together as a group, they graze, eat lots of food, grow nice and big. But when it comes to more challenging things, more intellectual things, I don't think they perform quite so well. Whereas there's other animals that maybe have a better reputation for that. So we wanted to kind of compare and see how they ranked compared to other animals.
So you've got the idea. Let's talk about the test. What did you do to judge how smart these farmyard animals were?
Yeah, we tested lots of different things. The first one that we tested was an ability that is all about whether you know something exists, even when you can no longer see it. So it's something that the kids can try at home. If you've got a cup or something, turn it upside down and put your favourite thing underneath it, something that will fit underneath, and then get a couple of empty cups and swap them around and see if your parent or guardian can keep track of where the treat is or your favourite toy, whatever's under the cup. And that's exactly what we did for our animals. So we were trying to test whether they could keep track of what's under the cup. Now, for humans, that's pretty easy because we learn it from very, very young. But for animals, they don't always have that ability. And the way that they learn it and how far they understand it shows us how intelligent they are. So that was the first thing that we tested. The second thing that we tested was about numbers, whether they could count and know the difference between large amounts and small amounts. And the third thing we tested was how well they could group items together based on how similar they were.
So, those are the 3 tests. But which animals are you giving this exam to?
So we tried with sheep, goats and alpacas as our 3 subjects.
So those are the big 3. Take us through. How did they all do?
Well, the goats were exceptionally clever. They performed very, very well in the first test, which was the one where they have to keep track of things under cups. We made it more difficult for them. We changed up the numbers and how quickly we were changing around the cups, and they always managed to solve the task. Our sheep did very well, but not quite so well as the goats. They made a lot of mistakes, whereas the alpacas really struggled with the task, with that first one.
Across all 3 tasks, we said at the start that goats are one of the smartest. Is it far and away? Are they well clear in being the brainiest around?
Absolutely. In the counting task and in the grouping together task, categorization, those were the ones where there was a lot of similarity between the groups. But in the first test, which was the one where we were hiding objects, the goats were so good that they reached a level that was very similar to what humans can achieve. And humans, of course, are one of the most intelligent animals on the planet, if not the most. And the other animals that have reached that same level are chimpanzees, other monkeys, primates, and also crows as well, which are also very intelligent. So they really did extremely well, far better than we ever thought that they would.
You mentioned right at the start that this is really important, knowing how smart animals are, because it can help us look after them better. So knowing that goats are just like geniuses, what can that do to help you and other farmers take better care of them?
Goats are more intelligent than we thought, and for that reason, we need to provide them with certain kinds of accommodations in their management. So we need to maybe give them some things to do, some enrichment activities, things to keep them busy, to keep them interested. Because in the same way that we would be very bored if we were shut in a room alone all day, we would want something to keep us entertained. So we would want a book to read or a game to play. And the same can be said for goats, because we found that they are needing more stimulation than other animals. For the sheep and the alpacas, we know that they struggle with certain tasks. So we're going to need to change things in the way that we handle them and the way we look after them, so that we can make sure that we're not stressing them out and that they understand what's required of them and that they are going to be as happy and healthy as they can possibly be.
And when you think of a goat, they've got that beard, long grey. It does make them look a bit like a wizard, so it's not a grand surprise that they're so clever. Well, listen, what a brilliant idea. Thank you so much for doing the research and clearing that up for us, and thank you for coming on. Megan Quail, thank you for being there.
Thank you very much.
What a brilliant thing to study. What's the smartest animal in the farmyard? We'll have another special guest answering one of your questions in just a sec. Right now, are you ready for a huge announcement? It's massive. This summer, the Fun Kids Science Weekly is going on tour. Fun Kids Science Weekly Live will play all around the country. You can come out, you can see me. I will be there bringing the weirdest, the most amazing science to the stage. Now, a couple of years ago, you might have been there, we did a one-off show in London. Well, ever since then, we've been working very hard. We've been putting together the ultimate science show, and we are ready. We'll have amazing experiments, exciting guests, maybe a real-life meteorite too. You can join me. I'll take you into a 1-hour journey of how the universe works. We will uncover everything. This podcast, the greatest podcast in the world, in the universe, will come to life in front of your eyes. Fun Kids Science Weekly Live is happening this summer in a theatre near you. I hope you'll come out. I can't wait to say hello. We'll have selfies, we'll have high fives, we'll do loads of smart science stuff, and you can get your ticket right now. Find out more about Fun Kids Science Weekly Live at funkidslive.com/tour. How about that then? I'm so excited to go on tour, to say hello to you, and maybe to answer your questions in person as well. Until then, we'll do it the traditional way on the podcast. If you have anything sciencey that you want sorted out, make sure you leave it as a voice note for me on the free Fun Kids app or at funkidslive.com. First up this week, sent in as a message, Etta wants to know, why do frogs croak? Well, Etta, only male frogs typically croak, and they do it for a few reasons. Maybe it's mating season and they want to attract a partner. They'll warble in their throats to try and bring a female closer. Each species has a unique croak as well, so partners can identify their own kind of frogs. Makes things much easier that way. They might croak as a warning for other frogs to stay away from their territory. It's their land, you stay to yours and I'll keep to mine. They might croak when they're startled or threatened, maybe to warn others. They croak in much the same way as we talk, actually. They force air through their larynx. That's their voice box. We have one too. A group of tissues which wobbles and vibrates. It makes a sound. That sound then goes into a vocal sac, which is a big open space that they've got. The sound will bounce around and around. It'll get louder. Then when it's loud enough, it's amplified and it'll boom out into the world. And they do it very quickly, don't they? They do that over and over and over again to make the croaking noise. In a very similar way that we talk, Etta. Thank you very much for your question. Let's get on another one now. This is from Shaan.
Hello, my name is Shaan. I wanted to know, why do volcanoes erupt?
Well, Shaan, thank you for your question. How do volcanoes erupt? It sounds like one of the most fascinatingly destructive questions we could try and sort out. So let's get the answer from one of our very best volcanologists. I think that's what they're called. Let's discover more. Professor David Pyle is here from the University of Oxford. David, thank you so much for being there. Volcanologist is right, yeah?
That's correct, yes, volcanologist.
Ah, what a fancy term. It sounds like something from Jurassic Park or an amazing film. Well, listen, you're the perfect person. How do volcanoes erupt?
There's lots of dimensions to this question, but we'll start with the obvious one. So a volcanic eruption is when molten rock escapes out of the inside of the Earth onto the surface of the planet. And sometimes we see volcanic eruptions that involve explosions. They can be really dramatic. So there's booms associated with the explosion and an ash cloud, which then might rise many kilometers into the air. So ash and lava are the same material underneath the ground. In a lava eruption, it's just that the hot molten rock, there's enough pressure underneath the system. The hot molten rock just breaks its way through the surface. Sometimes that's accompanied by fire fountains. If you look at the starting phase of the recent Icelandic eruptions, or if you look at the activity, the fire fountaining activity in Hawaii at the moment, it's just that. There's magma under the ground. It's slowly forcing its way through cracks and fractures towards the surface. And then eventually the thin bit of rock that's holding it in breaks. And then you just get this violent, vigorous cascade. And in Hawaii, some of those fire fountains are hundreds of meters up in the air, and it's just a spray of droplets.
Wow. So why is the magma so keen to get to the surface in the first place, even without the water bubbles popping and bursting it? Why is it trying to kind of creep through these gaps and these fissures to get to open air?
Some people might have seen things like lava lamps. So in a lava lamp, you have two liquids, which don't mix together, and you turn a lamp on at the bottom of the lava lamp and it heats up one of the liquids. And as that liquid heats up, it expands. And so the density of that liquid drops a little bit. And less dense material rises and more dense material sinks. Inside the Earth, there's a kind of a sweet spot where the rock inside the Earth is hot enough to melt. Most of the interior of the Earth is solid, but it's really hot. And so it's creeping on geological timescale. It's creeping. It's incredibly viscous. It's what we call plastic, but it's just deforming very slowly. When that material melts, you form only a very small amount of melt, but the melt is both less dense than the rock around it. So it's lighter and it wants to rise. And the melt is also a lot less sticky than the solid rock of the mantle. So you've now got a liquid which is able to move, and it will tend to move upwards until it reaches the point where it can no longer move upwards any further.
Right. Now, the most famous images of volcanoes in our mind are of it erupting and peaking out of the top of what looks like a mountain with a huge crater and hole in the middle. Why do volcanoes always seem to look like that when really, if it's just magma escaping from the surface of the Earth, well, it could be from any types of cracks. Why is it seen so violently in these big towering pyramid shapes?
One of the puzzles that we're trying to solve about the Earth is that if we're making melt at 100 kilometers deep, how is it that it ends up being focused into these particular locations? Magma starts to force its way toward the surface. At the bottom, it's just it's oozing out or squeezing out. But as the magma gets nearer the surface, it can only really move in what we call dikes or sills. So it kind of breaks the rock open, and then you have pulses of liquid forcing their way up through the crust. Now, for reasons that we don't fully explain, but we could write down some mathematical equations, it looks as though once you've formed a volcano in a particular location, once you've opened up some of those fractures, then it's actually easier for the next bit of magma to follow that same sort of fracture network. So once you start to build a volcano, you tend to grow it into a mountain. In the explosive volcanoes around the Pacific Ring of Fire, for example, you could literally you could hop from Patagonia in southern Chile. You could just hop from peak to peak following the volcanic mountains. They die away for a little bit, but then you find some more in Peru, and then you find some more in Ecuador, and so on. So those mountains probably take anywhere from 250,000 to 500,000 years to grow into big mountains. The location of the volcano might change ever so slowly. So in some countries, if you go to Guatemala, for example, there's a fantastic volcano called Fuego, meaning fire. The volcano right next door, called Acatenango, it's the older part of Fuego volcano. So it's maybe 500,000 years older than Fuego. And it stands right next to it as another volcanic cone. So these volcanoes tend to form cones. If they have really big eruptions, then those cones can be destroyed and broken up into craters. So there are huge volcanic craters like Yellowstone, for example, in the United States. It's such a big crater, you can't actually see that you're in a crater, but it's just a big volcanic system.
Well, there you go, Shaan. We have covered the whole thing. I hope that sorts out your question. That is exactly how volcanoes erupt. Massive thanks to Professor David Pyle from the University of Oxford. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
If you have anything sciencey that you want answered on the show, make sure you leave it as a voice note for me on the free Fun Kids app or at funkidslive.com. And it's time for this week's Dangerous Dan, where we look at some of the weirdest, the most unique and strange things in the world. And this time we're headed into water, fresh water, to find a worm that loves mind control. The horsehair worm is a type of zombie worm. It's a parasite. It takes control of its prey and turns them into a kind of zombie. It'll do whatever the worm wants. This beast is long and thin. It can grow to 2 meters, sometimes looks quite a harsh brown colour. It lays its eggs underwater or near vegetation, right, in damp, marshy areas. There are quite a few in the UK, spread across parts of the world with similar climates to Britain as well. It wants to be eaten by grasshoppers or crickets. And when it's swallowed, when it's inside the insect, it chills out for a bit, then it gets to work, and the horsehair worm takes control. As a parasite, it works its way into the insect's brain, and then it takes over. It makes the grasshopper really want to get into the water. So it hops around, it bounces, and then over time, it'll bounce straight into the water for no real reason, because when it's in there, the worm bursts out, it carries on its life cycle, hatching eggs, so that the next generation of horsehair worms can just do it all over again. The insect, the grasshopper, the cricket, whatever it is, well, it can't carry on its life cycle. Normally, shockingly, they drown. And like so many things in the wild, it all seems a bit pointless, really. The parasite just does that so it can carry on. Randomly takes over an insect, turns it into a zombie so it leaps into water, so then it can hatch out and just do it all over again. The life cycle continues, and that strange, unique deadliness means the horsehair worm goes straight onto our dangerous Dan list. For this week's Battle of the Sciences, where we try to uncover once and for all what is the greatest science in the history of all sciences, we are looking at the wonderful world around us, the plants, the wildlife, the trees. We're talking environmental science this week with Ashley Tamburello, who joins us. Ashley, thank you for being there. You have 1 minute to tell us why environmental science is the greatest of them all. And that 60 seconds starts in 3, 2, 1, go!
Thanks. I think environmentalism, conservation, anything fighting climate change is absolutely the coolest because you get to be a real-life superhero for the planet. You're not just sitting at a desk or going into an office. You're out planting trees, protecting animals, and making the earth healthier and safer for everybody who lives here. It's like going on adventures every day. You can explore forests, oceans, and mountains, and you get to discover how everything in nature is connected like a giant magical puzzle or big box of Legos. People who work in the environmental sciences get to invent new ways to fight pollution, stop climate change, and help all the animals in the world, all the plants, all the tiny little bugs have safe homes. Every little thing we do makes a massive difference, and I think the best part is that you get to help to save our planet every day, and that's such an awesome feeling.
There we go, squeezing into the minute, Ashley. Thank you so much. So, I love the idea of being a superhero every day and going on adventures. Now, where has your work in environmentalism and conservation taken you? What adventures can you tell us about?
So my background is actually in environmental science, but I'm also an educator, which means I've spent my career talking to kids and families, even people in big business suits working in offices, about how cool the planet is and why we should save it and what you can best do to feel like you're connecting to the world around us. So I've worked in aquariums, I've worked with sharks, I've been out on boats studying fish, I've worked in zoos, I've worked in museums, and currently I work for a really cool organization who works in the subtropics, planting trees all around the world. So my job's taken me all over the place, and I love every single bit of it.
The thing with the climate crisis is so much of the damage has already been done. How fixable is it? Is it a case that we could travel around the world planting trees and hopefully that might sort everything out and we can be that superhero?
Ooh, that's a double-edged sword, isn't it? So what we do at Tree Sisters is we are based in the UK, but we work with communities who are actually on the ground in those forests planting trees so that we're not getting in airplanes, we're not creating a massive carbon footprint. We're working from here to support them on the ground, but that doesn't mean that we as families or kids can't make small changes every day in our life that helps fight the climate change right here in our backyard in England.
Well, if we're being superheroes and you are here to fight the corner for environmental sciences, just what are some of those things that we can do, very small changes that we can make that aren't going to completely overwhelm us and overturn our life? That can be a bit much for us to try and think about. Is there anything small you can help us out with?
Absolutely. We can do little things that you probably already do at home. You can recycle, you can compost, you can create really cool habitats in your back garden for the plants and animals that are already there. At Tree Sisters, we really believe that the best trees that you can plant are those that should already be there. So take a look at what trees work best in your environment. Could be something big, could be something small, and take some time as a family to plant those. If you have the opportunity to take public transport instead of driving, walk, cycle, jump on a bus, do that instead of getting in a car. There's lots of little things we can do every single day. You can buy local products, go to your farmer's market, and find some apples that were maybe grown a couple kilometers away instead of thinking about those that come from another country and have to travel on a boat and a plane and a truck just to get to you.
Now, when we talk about the climate crisis, I speak to loads of scientists who give me really clear evidence of what's happening. But there are some people that still aren't on board, that still don't necessarily believe it. Now, in your work in environmentalism and being an educator with this field, have you figured out why that is, why some people still just don't fancy believing in it?
Ooh, I think that's such a good question. And you might come across someone, maybe even someone you know really well who doesn't believe in it. And it might be that they need maybe a little bit of help understanding the science behind it, because the science can be really complicated. And sometimes we speak in such big words that sometimes those are hard for everybody to understand the concepts. But you know what I like to think is, even if, let's just say in some world that none of this is actually happening, what is hurtful about doing things that make the world, your back garden, your school, your community a better place? And something like planting trees or bringing back local animals or making things, just the air healthier around you, all of that are really good things we can do, even in some bizarre case. Climate change isn't as bad as scientists know that it is.
Ashley, we always finish with the same question. If I throw you forward years and years and years when you decide to kind of hang up your environmental science boots and you call it a day, what's the one question that you really want to know? What's the one answer that you want to figure out in your adventures in science?
Ooh, my big question would be, I would want to know that I made such a positive impression on kids and families and communities around me that they continued on with their adventure in learning about the environment and becoming planet superheroes. I'd want to be able to ask that question, hey, did I make a big enough impression that I did something good in the world and that other kids younger than me are doing the same thing and carrying that forward?
Well, that's Ashley Tamburello flying the flag, fighting the fight for environmental science from Tree Sisters. Ashley, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you very much to the Tree Sisters for coming on to prove why environmental science is the greatest type of science. And I really like that because I love a tree and I love thinking about the world around us. And if a science can help us do that, that's a double thumbs up from me. We can learn more about the world now with an episode from our Echo Gecko series. Echo Gecko is a lizard who loves ecology, which is all about finding out how living things in the environment work together. He thinks it's amazing. So do I. This time he's checking out coniferous forests.
Hello, I'm Echo Gecko, a lizard who loves ecology. Ecology is all about who and what we share the earth with and the things we have in common. Why don't you join me as we find out more? It's a chilly winter's day and we're in a coniferous forest in Alaska. No, not carnivorous. It's not a forest that eats meat. Coniferous, as in conifers, that's the name of the evergreen or softwood trees you find here. And if you're wondering what one looks like, many are pine trees, which are like the sort you hang your Christmas decorations on, just much, 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 much bigger.
So here it is, Merry Christmas.
No, slow down. It might be snowing here, but it's not Christmas yet. The shape of these trees is perfect for places where it does snow a lot. The downward sloping shape allows the snow to slide off so the branches don't break. Let's go underneath those branches to see what's there. It smells lovely in here. Fresh and piney, but there aren't many other plants to see. A few fungi and ferns. Unlike deciduous forests where the leaves fall off the trees, evergreens are, well, always green and leafy. Evergreen. This means the sunshine never really gets to the ground. it doesn't mean there's nothing to see. You'll find small mammals like voles, weasels and red squirrels, and of course birds in the Alaskan forests, like this beautiful yellow-coloured chap. He's called a western tanager and he's foraging for seeds. But when it gets really cold, he goes on holiday to the tropics. Quite a good idea. Watch out, it's a bald eagle. Let's hide. I'm sure he'd like a lizard for lunch. Phew! I don't think he saw us. While scary for friendly geckos, this amazing bird is quite rare as they've been hunted near to extinction, although their numbers are increasing once more. His enormous nests can be up to 6 feet wide and he's an expert at spotting small mammals in the forest. Oh, it's good at spotting small lizards too. I'd better make a run for it. See you next time, I hope.
Eco Bite. Closer to home, did you know you can see ecology in action just by looking at a simple leaf? A leaf's job is to soak up as much sunshine and carbon dioxide as it can for the plant or tree to turn these into energy by photosynthesis and then return oxygen and water to the atmosphere. Leaves often work together with the other leaves to make a mosaic-like surface to catch the sun with as few gaps as possible. They do a good job too, as we all love sitting in the shade when we're too hot. If there were big gaps between the leaves, we'd have to find a different place to sit. Some leaves are knobbly and others are smooth. The smoother the shape, the less moisture is given out, so smooth leaves are common in dry places. The darker the leaf, the more sunshine it can absorb, perfect in places that don't get much sunlight. Evergreen leaves, like pine needles, stay on the tree for around 3 years and work hard to make energy for the tree, even in the depths of winter. Very handy in colder climates. Join us again next time when we find out more about ecology on Fun Kids. Echo Gecko is brought to you by Fun Kids with the British Ecological Society, advancing ecology and making it count.
And that is it for this week's Fun Kids Science Weekly. So, the big announcement. If you would like to see this podcast live on stage near you, find out more about Fun Kids Science Weekly Live. We're playing all over the country, starting in summer through to autumn as well. You can find out more and look into tickets as well with your grown-ups. Get to funkidslive.com/tour. I'd love to see you at our Fun Kids Science Weekly live shows. It's gonna be huge and properly out of this world. And if you've got a question that you want answered on the podcast, make sure you leave it as a voice note for me on the free Fun Kids app or at funkidslive.com. You can hear loads of our brilliant podcast series. You've got Echo Gecko today. We've had so many more. They're on Google, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your shows, and they're on the website. And Fun Kids, who are our children's radio station from the UK, listen all over the country on the app at funkidslive.com too. And if you've got a smart speaker, wake it up and ask it to play Fun Kids.